$1.
Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, this is a big moment in history for us. To say 10 weeks ago, we sat in these same seats, in these same
Mm-hmm.
exact seats. Before the Kevin Samuels filter and before this
Mm-hmm.
raggedy plant behind me. Actually, the plant was there then, but we decided we didn't want to do a podcast, and here we are 10 weeks later
Doing a podcast.
doing a podcast. I'm your
Yeah.
host, Jared Wilkins, aka the Google grad.
And I'm Dorrance Creighton.
There we
Thanks
go.
again for coming back.
And
And we
welcome to
appreciate you for
episode
being
10.
here for the last 10 weeks.
Mhm.
So, as you can see, we celebrating with drinks. I have water now, but I'm going to pour up in a minute.
I have water. You baby.
They say you never make a toast without an empty glass. It's supposed to be bad luck.
All right.
I'm drinking should I say, I don't know, they're not paying me. I can say my brother's cat is named after this drink. So that'd be a little Easter egg. Shout out Mo, a listener of the podcast.
Yeah, man. So what's been going on, man?
Um man, I got my second COVID shot. And
Yes.
yo, talking to my brother, he said it best. Lethargic is the way I felt. Just like
Okay.
kind of spacey, um, tired, restless, maybe.
Yeah.
Restless, where I'm sleepy, but I really couldn't go to sleep. Um, but I didn't feel like any type of like sickness. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was the first day I got it, and it was cool. Just soreness in the arm, and then the next day, that's when I felt all those symptoms. And this is my second day, and I was kind of feeling the same way, a little lethargic, a little woozy, almost like I was drunk. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just drink. I'll have some whiskey. If I'm gonna feel this way, I might as well just make it make sense. So I
Yeah,
had
I
some
heard
whiskey
that.
earlier during my work day, and that helped a lot. So now it's the evening, and I'm good.
I meant to
So
ask
that
you
that's been my few days.
where uh so for y'all who don't know, right? So I'm big into watches and cars. And I've been trying to convince Dorrance not even to buy one, just to understand the market. And he's just like, no,
Mm-hmm.
right? Dorrance is like, nah, like it's not for me. And then
No,
so
no, it's not
randomly,
100% true.
randomly, yesterday, Dorrance hit me and said, yo, I want to go Rolex. How much is it gonna cost me? So I want to ask you, but then not only did he say, I want to go Rolex, he said, I want the most exclusive gold Rolex that exists. so, so I want to
I,
ask you, where'd
I
that
like
come
what I
from?
like. I like what I like. Um, yeah, I'm just feeling in I just want to stunt, you know.
Is that what it is? Is that is, is that what it is?
No, I do want one nice like classic timepiece. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I've always been into watches. When I was in middle school, I used to wear um, khakis with a flannel T-shirt and my chucks and a pocket watch with the chain. I don't know if you remember that, but I had a pocket watch at that
I feel
time.
like I do. I think I do kind of remember that.
So I've always loved watches, and I do have appreciation for them. But the price, it just still boggles my mind, you know. But
I mean,
I do appreciate the movement. I appreciate the engineering put into it. I think it's dope. But I'm just like, at some point, I'm just like, some things aren't like I'm not ready for them yet.
mm-hmm,
To really go deep dive into them. And I'm just like, it's not time. So I'll shelve it for a while.
mm-hmm.
So now I think it's more that time where I can bring on a little bit more um hobbies, I guess we would call them. So
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That make like that way you don't get like completely wrapped up into it before before you're actually in a position to do what you want to
right.
do. I get that. I get
Like
that. I'm
before
the
it's time,
opposite.
like I mean, I'm like all about utility. I'm like,
Yeah.
what type of use would it have in my life right now? And if it doesn't have any utility, I'm throwing it away. But now I'm coming up to
Yeah.
that point, like, okay, these are things I like. I can pick them back up. But like you, on the other hand, like you'll go 100% into it, like deep dive, and which is why like I'm gonna ask you, you know.
Well, because what I've learned is it's all about relationships. Everything is about relationships, period.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so if you can take your interest, and you don't even have to become an expert, but just something you're interested in, and then you're able to, find like a small community that you can tap into,
Mm-hmm.
it builds relationships
Right.
that when you are ready, or when you are in position, you already have resources to that you vetted over time, over years,
Mm-hmm.
um, that you can connect with.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
makes sense.
so
And then you can
that for
actually
me,
speak the
that's a
language
big
too,
thing. Yeah,
which people
yeah, that's
appreciate. You know.
that's a big thing. Like when because again, when I walk into an AD or an authorized dealer, right, like a Rolex dealer or a JLC dealer or whoever, if I
Mm-hmm.
walk in, especially if I'm dressed a certain way, like if I'm dressed down, I'm not their typical customer.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So when they see me come in, and then I'm able to have a certain conversation, with
Mm-hmm.
them, they have a different level of respect.
Right.
Because like,
Yeah, it's
oh,
like
okay, you
he actually knows what
actually,
he's talking about.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that again, that just creates relationships. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I may not necessarily buy something from that dealer. I may buy something from someone else and then come back later. But it's just the point. Like it's just to
Right.
help, be seen in the community. Because everything is relationships, especially when you get into like those types of consumer goods.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't, like you said you wanted or you like the Daytona, and the Daytona is like the most prestigious like Rolex watch.
Yeah,
And
I
so
like what I like.
if you walk in the store and say, "Give me a Daytona," they're gonna laugh at you.
They're like, no, who
Yeah,
are you?
you have to have a history
Where did
with
you
the
come from?
brand or a history with a certain dealer to even be considered. You'd have to spend
Yeah.
a pretty reasonable amount of money to even be considered to get a Daytona from the AD,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So it's just all about just making those relationships, meeting with people, because you never know who is who, and just being seen amongst that community, becoming, just having a presence. Even if you aren't
Right.
active, people appreciate, you know, what
Mm-hmm.
whatever your contribution is, as long as you really truly have an appreciation for,
Mm-hmm.
the art, the science of
Right.
it.
Right. Exactly.
And it's not just let me throw a bunch of diamonds on it,
Yeah.
you know.
And that's my thing. Once I really get into something, I really want to know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, you know, I'm not gonna just do it for the clout. You know, I joke about just stunting, but I just really I want to know
Yeah.
before I really go all the way in, and that takes time for me. Like my process is slow, but it's my process. So um, it helps me that way though. If I'm like fully like ready to receive the information, and it's funner that way too.
Mm-hmm.
It's a funner process for me.
I mean,
You know.
all that makes sense. It all makes sense. I'm not arguing with you. You know what I mean? It all
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. It's I wish I had a much better relationship like in the watch world than I currently
Mm-hmm.
do. I have a better relationship with a lot of people in the car world. So,
Mm-hmm.
if there's certain cars that I want to see in person or get to experience, I can connect with certain guys and actually make that happen.
Right.
Um, with watches, it's a little bit different because no one,
Mm-hmm.
no one in my immediate circle is really on that level where they're dropping like 50 grand, 100 grand on a watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's hard to actually go out and see these in your hand. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Um, but I'm gonna holler at P Minty, man. Shout out P Minty. One of his childhood friends actually is like a watch dealer, I believe, second generation.
Mm. Okay.
So and I don't like to waste people's time, just go in there and be like, yo, let me look at a bunch of stuff. But I'm gonna see if
Right.
we can put something together. Maybe we can put something together. We can go look at some stuff and just see what's what.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
you know what I mean? Yeah. So you're getting closer, man. And that's exciting to me. You know what I mean? I like that.
Yeah. It's funny because our history, we kind of get into the same things around the same time, and it seems like these last few years have been a little bit off. I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that right now.
Yeah.
you know,
No, I
it's
get it.
like, and then like we'll kind of like come around to it in our own times now, which
Mhm.
which makes it like more authentic to be like,
Yeah.
it's not for me right now. You know,
Yeah. I mean,
I'll circle back around.
it is what it is,
But
man. I'm not arguing. I'm just happy you made
mhm.
it. I'm just
Yeah,
happy you
I'm
made it
dipping my
here.
feet in. I've been doing a little research. I know Tudor. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I was reading that was I forget the guy who created Rolex, but I believe he's a German guy, and he also created that other brand, the Tudor brand, and it's basically the
Hmm.
same movements, but it's just I guess it would be considered a lower quality, but they use the same quality. So the branding's not there, but they use all the same. I don't want to say all the same, but the same
Similar.
maker made that brand. So
Yeah.
I would assume if you know Tony Stark made another Iron Man suit and didn't call it Iron Man, but called it, you know, Gold Man, it would be the same, the same
Yeah.
level of detail,
Um.
but they
Yes
are
and no.
significantly cheaper. Like,
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, there's only like maybe three or four actual. It's just like cars, right? Like
mm-hmm,
so. There's tons of car companies that we see, but there's really only like four or five parent companies,
mm-hmm,
right? So there's like GM, VW, and Porsche. They go back and forth of who owns each other. I don't know who owns what,
right,
but VW and the all the others, right?
mm-hmm,
So um and that's probably really almost it. It's like it's like GM and then
mm-hmm,
VW. That's really like the two major players, and then you have all these little independent brands, and that's why
mm-hmm,
they're able to sell so many cars because they build like modular chassis
right,
and then they spread them across different brands and different
mm-hmm,
models so they can spend the R&D money to make one car or one
mm-hmm,
powertrain or develop one chassis and then use it for five different models.
yeah, just plug and play.
Yeah. And so even in the watch world there's only a handful, there's probably three actual major brands that own the majority of the companies.
Mm-hmm,
So they all have their
yeah,
own little individual things, but they're technically just owned by a couple companies.
mm-hmm,
Um, and there's like three or four major houses
mm-hmm,
from Switzerland. One of my favorite brands today, actually, Vacheron Constantine is
mm-hmm,
one of the originals, but for a brief time, they were actually sold to the Chinese
mm,
before they were bought back. So they don't really consider
Okay.
them like, Swiss quality watches.
Even when they bought them back,
Yeah, because hey, it's
and
that
like,
little
nope,
moment,
that's a Chinese watch now.
Yeah.
It's made in China watch. That's
So
cold.
and I really like a lot of the stuff that they have as far as like their perpetual calendar and whatnot. And we getting real
Mhm.
deep. Nobody cares about this. I know the people who listen to us don't even know what this kind of stuff even means, but
No, I wouldn't even. I
um,
wouldn't even. I wouldn't even say that. You can't even play our viewers. You know,
you-
it's a very diverse viewer.
not according to the stats, man. Stats say we 93% male, 28 to 34. Where are the women at? Oh man.
uh,
It's episode 10, y'all. Y'all gotta drink
yeah,
with us. This is a moment.
right. Unless you're driving,
Well, yeah,
which
that's different.
a lot
That's
of people
different.
do listen to us while they drive. That was another poll.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So,
speaking of drinking, um, today, or really the past couple days have been really interesting and really frustrating. And for me, what I'm learning is, man, through these 10 weeks is that my like whole presence on this podcast is trying to figure out my frustration with other people's lack of understanding. And these past couple of days have been like they've served as like a microcosm of that. Because there's a lot of things going on and stuff that we talk about, and maybe it's frustrating because I feel like we have the answers, like William said, we have the answers and the solutions to a lot of these problems, but we don't have the exposure.
mm,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? And the first thing that kicked it off was so I'm in a group. I live in Inglewood, so I'm in a Facebook group where with like a bunch of residents from Inglewood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a guy. This wasn't even an Inglewood property, but there was a guy who posted, or someone posted that a house that was near Inglewood, but it was LA City,
Mm-hmm.
sold for $1 million.
Okay, I did
I
see that.
know, I know the area because I have a relative who lives over there, a
Mm-hmm.
couple blocks over. But it was listed for I think eight. I want to say like 820 or something, or 830,
Mm-hmm.
and it sold for $1 million. And go ahead.
I was just thinking, I haven't. I should have ran that address. I think that was in the same area where I have a listing. It's basically a better part of it was better than where my property was.
Mhm.
But I remember that neighbor. I'm gonna look it up later. I remember that
I
neighborhood
think
though.
I think your listing is a little more north.
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure north. But if you go further south, that's where like that niche was, as they say in
yeah,
LA. Nice little niche.
yeah.
But yeah, they were hovering around like low 700s. And if that
Mhm.
one's further south, I could see it listing starting at 800,000. And okay, so it was listed at around 800,000, sold for a million, a little bit over a million. I think it's like 1,020,000 or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, I seen that thread. It was like people need to stop selling out.
yeah.
Hold on to your houses.
Um,
Gentrification.
um, I want to make sure we shouldn't be drinking for this conversation. I want to make sure. I want to make sure I choose my words correctly. But so yeah, so that was very frustrating because in situations like that, the thing that bothers me the most is that it blatantly shows us like just how far behind we are as far as like the majority. Of course there's a minority, or there's a section of us who understand certain things and they live and practice that, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
evidence of that. But in large, where we exist in large in terms of the statistics. Um, it's clear just to see like how far away we are from truly understanding like certain economic circumstances. And you know, as you mentioned, the comments are all, don't sell the house and all that kind of stuff. Um, but then there's comments of, well, I want $2 million for my house now, right? Because now they see that someone's willing to pay that much for it. So now it's like, well, if you're willing to pay that much, now I just want $2 million because I want it. And we're not the average person isn't really, educated in that sense on like what's actually happening.
I mean, they're not educated in the fact that if 10 people decide to buy your property at 800,000, that's what the market says. So if 5 people want to buy it for 1 million, if one person want to buy it for 2 million, you're basically talking about lower buyer pools. So you can list it for wherever you want. It can be whatever price. It can be 5 million, but it's more likely that your buyer pool is going to be smaller.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that buyer has to see some type of value in it, and they have to attach whatever they see in the value onto that property. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't looked at the numbers. I don't know if that number supports it, but we just never know why they want to be there.
The money is. People don't understand the relationship between the cost of borrowing and how far you can stretch the value.
Right.
If you have
lower interest rate environment.
Correct. Right. The lower the interest rate goes, the wider the borrowing, the buyer pool becomes. Right? Because for someone who wouldn't, because you got to remember these mortgages are over 30 years. So even just 2% a year over 30 years makes a huge difference in what you could potentially qualify for. So if I'm $500-$600 away from qualifying, and then interest rates drop 0.5% or 1%, I qualify now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I don't think people truly understand that relationship. And if you have a 30-year mortgage right now, I would strongly consider refinancing to a 15. I just got quotes from somebody at 1.875 for a 15-year fix.
That's crazy.
What? Like 1.8% for 15 years?
Right. Yeah,
that's the equivalent. That's the equivalent to like basically, I don't know what, 3.7 for a 30-year fix.
Yeah, that's nothing.
And your house will be paid off in probably 15 years. What? Yo. So the money is so cheap. There's just an abundance of players, but this is what the government is doing at the moment, right? They're keeping rates low to draw up economic activity, hoping that it actually becomes sustainable. But we're seeing that it really isn't, because no one is, the jobs numbers don't look great, and things are becoming increasingly expensive. Right. So, and their only weapon against things becoming ridiculously expensive is to raise interest rates. That's their only thing. That's the only thing they can do.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, it's coming.
So that's gonna happen eventually. But just seeing some of them comments and just hearing or just reading like the conversations and what it's being blamed on. Like that's the most
so what are you hearing? Because I'm not in that group. What
I'm gonna add you.
No,
because it's
that gonna add to my frustration.
I gotta share this because
I actually seen it on Twitter. I seen that posted on Twitter. It is sold for like over $1 million. I was saying, yeah, that's about my grandma's house. and
Yeah.
like people start talking about what hoods adjacent is to.
See, like what people don't understand is like there's a very distinct difference between someone who would buy a house regardless of where it is versus like a person who would just be like, I won't buy it because it's there. Like
Bro,
they're
I
fulfilling a
said two.
need.
Yeah, a need that makes sense. Like in the real world, I
Mm-hmm.
remember 2 or 3 years ago, I was telling people when Compton was like 400,000. I said, y'all need to probably start buying in Compton. I know y'all don't want to be there, but you probably should be there.
Mm-hmm.
And now Compton is crazy now,
Mm-hmm. It was the
crazy.
only affordable place
But people kept saying, I don't want to buy there. I don't want to buy there.
because of rap music. That's why. Because they heard too many rap songs about
Yeah.
Compton. Compton is actually there's parts of Compton that's cool. Like I've met plenty of owners out there, like Rancho Dominguez, all
Mm-hmm.
that. Like it's just normal working class neighborhoods. Does it have areas that are really bad? Absolutely. But it's so what? So does every city that you live in. You
Mm-hmm.
somebody still has to buy the house.
Yeah.
That's why I say we don't use our understanding of the landscape to our advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Like we use it to harm. Like we use it to harm or to prevent us from advancing in certain aspects. Because if we're the only people who understand the demographics, we should be the ones making the investments.
Mm-hmm. That's true boots on the ground. Like who knows your neighborhood better than you? No
Man,
one. Like
exactly.
we should be taking more advantage of those things. When people are scared to move into traditional black neighborhoods, um, instead of complaining about people seeing opportunity before we do. So it's so interesting. I won't even go into that.
No, it was inevitable because when you look at the wave that was coming, so as people are priced out of like the Marina, Culver, Playa del Rey, Playa Vista, even as they get priced out, they continue to move east.
Mm-hmm.
So they go through every single place. They go through Inglewood, they go through Hawthorne, they go through Gardena, they go through Carson, Lawndale.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, because if you go too far south, that's just as expensive, if not more, because now you're in Torrance, Redondo, and Manhattan Beach,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they continue to go east, and then they go to Compton, and you can get a nice house for 400,000. You know what I mean? It
Mm-hmm.
just makes sense. Like if
Yeah, they're
if you're
looking at
someone
value.
if you're someone who's gonna buy, it's like, well, I'm just gonna buy here.
Yeah, the main buyer today is looking for. They're looking at a few things. How close are they? How close is the commute from where they work to their job, door to door?
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're looking at a school districts where the kids can go to school. LA is a little bit different because they have a lot of private schools that's easily available and charter schools, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're just looking at square footage of the actual home, then square footage of the lot. Do they have a front yard, backyard? How large is it? Um, and then of course they're looking at safety. But one thing about people, other people who move into the neighborhoods, traditional black neighborhoods, those people don't mess with them. And that's
No.
another thing. Like if it was somebody who looked just like you moving in, they're gonna press you. They're gonna press you and your kids.
Yeah, that's true.
It's crazy. It's crazy that you because I understand that if you can't even move into your own neighborhood because you're gonna get pressed, or you're afraid that your kid's gonna get pressed, especially if you have teenage boys. You know, so these are things you think about.
Mm-hmm.
This is a horrible thought, but it is what it is. So um, so people, everyone else can move into those neighborhoods instead for the people who look like them, which is
Huh.
crazy.
No,
It's
I
absolutely
definitely
crazy.
I
But then
definitely
at the
get
same
that.
time, you say gentrification. It's like, well, damn, like let me move in without pressing me and my kids. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we can't have both. You know,
Yeah.
we can't have both. So
I mean, it's a lot
It's
of that,
weird.
man.
It's
It's
weird.
a lot of that. It's a lot of when, because a lot of the comments were, dang, somebody paid $1 million for that. Like it was a lot of that, right?
That just shows how much you don't value your own shit.
Ex- exactly.
That's all
That's what I
that.
was just
That's
about to
all that
say.
says.
That's
Like,
what I
you
was
gonna
just
pay for
about to
this
say.
bullshit? Like, these are your things. Like, you got there first. You had to, like, so much opportunity to make it into something, and you fumbled it.
You
You
know
straight
what?
up fumbled it.
That's like, and even that, like that completely. I feel like if I had something that, I'm just saying, I'm putting myself in their shoes. If I had something that I felt was that bad, and someone was willing to pay me a premium for it, they could have it.
You would think so.
So what are we really holding on? Like the whole, don't sell. I'll make sure I said this right because we won't get canceled again. Don't sell don't sell grandma's house, but nobody goes to see grandma or nobody goes to help grandma. It's just don't sell a house. For what?
Mm-hmm. Nobody going over there
Like,
to cut a grass. You know, clip the rose bushes. You just it's almost just a space for people to say I'm from here because my grandma lived here.
what are we holding for?
Um, I don't know. I don't know because if something's valuable and it's not getting its full use, it's time to sell. It's time to sell.
Like it's
I don't
I
see how you can simultaneously devalue something and value it at the same time. That's what's going on. You paid that much for what? But also don't want to sell because I don't want to lose the culture of the neighborhood. It's like, come on, we can't have
but
both.
I mean, I understand wanting to retain the culture of the neighborhood, right? But you have to be able to. I feel like you have to be able to really articulate what that means. You can't just say it. Like you can't just say, um, "Oh, stop gentrification," and let's just hold. But hold for what? Like if you go to the forest, is there just one tree?
No, there's several trees. That's why it's called a forest.
Exactly.
It would be called
So
tree.
tree land, one tree land. If you have to continue to plant multiple seeds. That's why our wealth
Mm-hmm.
never grows. Every time I see
Mm-hmm.
these kind of conversations, it just reminds me that of again how far we are because we don't understand economics as a whole. Like in
Mm-hmm.
the majority of us, we don't understand economics and we don't understand you know wealth. Really, we
Mm-hmm.
just don't. Nobody understands second generation wealth at
Mm-hmm.
all. There's 100,000 people telling you how to get the bag to be first
Mm-hmm.
generation rich, right? There's tons of people telling you how to get the bag in air quotes.
Mm-hmm.
No one is telling you how to preserve it. There's no education and there's no preservation in our communities, right? And so if our elders if our elders are the ones who are doing all the work to build the wealth for us and no one is stepping up to continue that process because the
Mm-hmm.
goal is just to constrict it, right? It's to
Mm-hmm.
restrain the wealth. We're
Yep.
never letting go of this. It'll never grow. It'll just be here because this is
Mm-hmm.
ours. Then of course everyone will pass us up because we're not growing.
Yeah. You
No
scared.
one
You scared.
We don't understand the concept of reinvestment.
You,
Everything
you
has to be we're rich right now.
you know what an easy concept of reinvestment is? I'll tell you how most first time buyers are getting their down payment is from parents or from
Mm-hmm.
the past generation, right? First generation. So if the kid is buying now, they're second generation. So if grandma was able to give the down payment to their kids and then they can buy a property, and then once their grandkids come, their parents were able to give them a down payment. This is how most people are buying, especially in higher end
today's time.
neighborhoods.
Yeah.
For sure, today's time. So that's an easy concept of reinvestment. Is you know, but you know why that doesn't happen, and why we might get flack for what we talk about here, because we talk about getting a job, right? A job is going to qualify you to buy a house, right? You don't have to
Yeah.
have the down payment technically. If your grandmother, your parents had it, right? Um, I mean, that's just an easy concept of redistributing the wealth within our own families.
Well, I mean, it has
But
to
you
be
can't,
replanted.
because they can't qualify. They can't qualify based on income.
Yeah, but okay.
There's
So
no way they could.
that's
Nobody
true.
was stopping you from getting a job.
That's true because I'm not gonna say her name because but when or I could edit her name out. But when we
No,
went to
don't say
go
it. Just don't. I'm not
well
like you do the edits.
you already know who I'm talking about. So we went to go see her property in the desert, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So she has a son that's never worked a day in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And he's lived basically like rent free. He's never paid bills ever.
Mm-hmm.
He lived in one of her properties for his entire life, and he's 52.
Mm-hmm.
He's never had anything to do with the management of the properties.
Right.
So here you have someone who, because her husband had a stroke, has now inherited the operations of the family business,
Mm-hmm.
and she's all by herself. She has no help.
Right.
So what's putting yourself in, as far as her son goes, um, if he can't qualify. Now he wouldn't need to qualify because they have enough equity to where he could just go buy whatever he wants,
Mm-hmm.
cash.
Right.
But it's the point. They lacking that understanding puts him in a position where, because two things are happening at the same time. You have the nest egg or the matriarch or the patriarch, whoever it is. You have the nest egg of the family out here doing things for the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
And the next generation, instead of stepping up to the plate and figuring out how to preserve and continue the legacy, they're just waiting.
Yeah, they just waiting to inherit.
They're
I
just
mean, that's
waiting on this
trash.
event.
Yeah, it's trash. They're waiting for their matriarch to pass so they can move
Mhm.
in, so they can continue to be in
So they can go
part of
buy
the
a Ferrari.
neighborhood.
They can go buy a Ferrari.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's all it is. And I'm gonna tell you, and people might not, I know people don't understand this, and they're gonna, because we blame it on all kinds of other things every day, and um, and this conversation might not be a pleasing one for some people because they've just been so used to blaming other people for so long. But I'm gonna tell you why. And I'm gonna tell you why when the next generation takes over, they just sell the property
Mm-hmm.
and they won't explain it to you because they're too embarrassed. But I'll tell you why, because I've dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what happens is if I buy a property today, actually I'll give you a real life example. The lady who I talk about all the time, she was my first call. Her portfolio is worth about $18 million. Now that's split between about 9 properties. So your property taxes are based on what you paid for the property,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if she bought 9 properties over the span of 30 years, let's say her tax basis is around $4.5 million. So her property taxes collectively, I'm just using this as a very simple example, collectively are around 1.2% of $4 million annually, right? So probably like some 40 grand collectively amongst all 9 properties.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is when you die, whoever inherits the properties gets what's called a step up in basis, right? And what that does is it eliminates, or it basically wipes out the previous tax basis and raises it to market value. Now, why is that a good thing? Because you no longer have to pay capital gains if you sell the building, because capital gains is the difference between the market value and your tax basis or your original cost basis. You pay tax on whatever that gain is and depreciation recapture, right? So what happens is, when these people have kept rent so low for however long, 20 years, because they're helping people out, and just their cost basis in the building is low because they bought it so long ago, they're able to rent rooms to people for $600, $800. But what happens is, when the next generation takes over, and they have to go and deal with the trust attorney and get all the properties reappraised and reassessed, and they get a step up in basis to market value, now the portfolio is worth $20 million. So guess what you pay property taxes on? $20 million. So you go from having a tax bill of 40 grand to having a tax bill of 200 grand. Just like that. And if they're not in a position to pay the taxes, what do?
Sell the property.
That's the easiest way to set up, all that holding on to, they've owned this property for 50 years, hold on to it, never, all of that, it only places a tax burden on the next generation. That's all it does. Because you've positioned yourself to completely depreciate your property to where you can no longer reduce your tax basis, and it is no longer tax efficient. It's all gain. So the person who's going to sell it and they get the step up in basis, they won't have to pay capital gains. They can just sell it. So you bought the property for 200 grand. Here I am faced with a new tax bill that exceeds the amount of income the property brings in, or I can just pocket $20 million. It sounds pretty simple to me, right? It's like, yeah, put it on the market. So nobody's going to tell you that. Like, these guys, the kids who inherit the buildings won't tell you that, but that's what they'll do, because that's the situation that they're put in. And then they'll blow the money, and there'll only be like one kid who actually did the right thing, and all the other siblings will hate him. It's usually what happens. In every single instance that I've dealt with it personally, that's usually what happens. Because they refuse to sell, because the kids are telling them, you should not sell. We have to maintain this. We have to keep it in the family. And then as soon as they get hit with a new tax bill, it's on the market. Right? So we have to really understand, like, the concept of reinvesting the wealth. Elon Musk is who he is today because he sold and reinvested profits from like 5 or 6 different businesses. You think he just started with Tesla and built it from the ground up? Like, no, he bought Tesla and put PayPal money into Tesla. And now Tesla is worth $600 billion or $500 billion. And then he'll take that.
The PayPal.
He'll take that and then he'll put it into SpaceX. Right? But before PayPal, it was like some type of internet browser or something. Like, reinvestment is the key to wealth. We cannot just retain. We can't conserve our way to wealth. It has to grow, right? We have to continue to replant that seed. So even if the next generation isn't prepared to take over, you still have to, the best thing you could do is sell the property and reinvest those funds in a more tax efficient property to make it harder for the next generation to sell the building or sell the house, because they won't have an incentive to. But if you hand them a tax burden, the only way to solve that is to sell the building or sell the property. That's the only way to solve it. If they have a job, they might not have a job that pays them that much. And she's someone, speaking specifically on on the lady I'm talking about. She's someone who she makes around $500,000 in the mailbox, right? And that's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. But if her portfolio is worth 20 million and she's making $500,000 in the mailbox, that's like 1%. Like that's less than I'm assuming that's less than 2%. I can be wrong, but it might be 2%, right? So the easiest thing that she can do, because it's very, very clear in her situation that that's the nest egg and she's the queen bee. And while everyone else is still doing things, they're still holding on to her to make the decisions. So when she passes, what happens? Right? So the easiest thing for her to do in that sense, if no one is going to take care of the properties after she dies and sells them, because she's 90 years old, is to completely sell her entire portfolio. And if she has, $18 million left after settling any debt and all fees, she can go buy a $30 million building at a 5 cap, right? And that's 1.5 million a year in net income on $18 million, right? So 1.5 million a year on $18 million is around 8%. You're earning 8% a year on 18 million. That sounds pretty good to me. Like, I don't know where you can just do that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we really have to understand, like, it has to continue to grow unless someone is active enough and they've been involved enough to do it on their own. The person who's in that chair at the moment has to make the decision for the next generation. They have to. Otherwise, it'll continue just to dwindle away, and we'll spend all the money, and we'll continue to blame all these different outside forces for what's going on, just because we aren't prepared and we don't understand, and we don't want to understand. We want to be angry because this whole conversation right here will get you called to Uncle Tom.
As a full word. Um, yeah, I'll drink to that.
Right? This
Yeah,
whole
felt like
this whole conversation to get you called an Uncle Tom or whatever black folks call other black folks who don't just want to be poor their whole life.
you had to get that off your chest.
I did, man. It's been bothering me, man. Because there's so many instances of I wish that you got like people would just slow down and think before they react. Right. Just like you seen the article about the lady who racked up like 38,000 HOA fees. Why are we laughing about this? This is not funny. Okay. This is not funny.
Why did she stop paying the HOA fees
I don't know.
when they bought the house? It came with HOA fees. Why did they stop paying?
I don't know.
And for so long, I mean, that's what we talk about. You say grandma don't sell her house, but you're not helping. You don't know grandma's financial situation.
Nope.
Nobody in the family knows that grandma's not paying the HOA fees. Like, what's going on?
You know what though? You know
I think
what
this is
though?
the issue with what
No, go ahead. I'm gonna let you finish.
I, I, I think it's an issue in the root of this is I don't want people in my business. I think that's the main root of why we don't know what's going on in other people's financial lives, particularly like our family lives. So you can have grandma that's being, smacked in the head with HOA fees that's been
It's
racking up for
crazy.
10 years. Like what? Why that wouldn't be paid? And then I think this was just on my Instagram and I seen it come up and I was just like, the news mentioned it was worth $1 million. And she was like, I'm gonna die here. Like, I'm not giving it up. And I'm like, sell it. Sell it.
So-
You would rather go into foreclosure, just like stuck on your pride on like this is my house and I'm never selling. I'd rather lose it. That's the worst case scenario. When you in $1 million crib, you gonna down that hill? Why?
I don't know.
Why aren't you living the rest of your life on in a 55 plus community with on a lake with beautiful views, a lot of space where the grandkids can come over. You have a whole lot of space to visit. You can have barbecues, cookouts, and all kind of family gatherings. Why are we stuck in a condo, your small condo, that's I'm sure has a lot of deferred maintenance? Because if you're not paying your HOA fees, you're not fixing on things, right? AC probably out, paint peeling, all these different type of things. So why aren't we just selling that property and buying grandma a brand new house?
Because no one is educated enough to help with that decision. And many times they don't know, like people don't realize like me and Joey talk about this a lot. Um Shout out to bro Joe, Big Joe West.
Yeah, shout out
We
Joe.
we talk about this a lot because he's seeing certain things like that are close to him, you know what I mean, that within people who were close to him that that are starting to like make sense in the grand scheme of things. Like we always talk about this, like, and it's been that way for the past couple years.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I don't want to tell the whole situation. That's for him. But
Mm-hmm.
he's just starting to see certain things, and it's like, what we would normally, well, what I'll say is people don't understand what true wealth looks like, and I don't think they're able to identify it within their family,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we get so caught up in looking at people who look like us, like literally our age, they like what we like, and then they're
Mm-hmm.
wealthy. Because when people are looking on social media and just looking for other people, they're looking for themselves in other people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, they overlook those who are around them that have everything they would ever need, right?
Yeah.
So
They looking over all the old folks. These are the people with money.
exactly. So the
They
the
looking over all the old
millionaires,
folks.
the millionaires that they want to be, and they want to be like, and they want to emulate, are in their family, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't. We just talked about this on the last episode. They don't look like what what they want to look like because their way is better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, if your grandma owns a home or multiple homes, or you have an uncle or whoever, that's what the wealth looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like an old person who doesn't spend a lot of money, and they own a lot of things that are worth something,
Mm-hmm.
right? So many people don't even understand that someone within their family is even in a position to deal with those kinds of problems. So they don't even know to reach out. They don't know how to help because their interpretation of things is you just have a bunch of money. The only way you can be wealthy or rich is if you just have a bunch of cash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's it.
I can see that. Um,
I think that's where it comes from. They have a miss. They have a they don't understand the visual, so they never know to reach out because that's just grandma
mm-hmm.
house.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing your grandma is a millionaire, like like many times over. Like grandma got a duplex and a house. That's $3 million right there,
Yeah, I think
especially out here in LA.
um, people should read a book called The Millionaire Next Door. I think that changed my whole perspective. This is around the time I was like meeting clients who were millionaires and driving an old beat up 97 Honda Civic. Um, and basically, I mean, in that book, they say Um, it's not. It's just not a book. It's actually what is a book, but it's a collection of. They basically they surveyed so many different millionaires. I think it was like a few thousand millionaires. They would send a survey to them and ask these different questions about where they work, what do they drive, how much is in their retirement, how much did they save, et cetera, et cetera. And basically doing just a large survey to figure out where the millionaires are and what they look like, where they work, how they spend their money. And the typical millionaire had um, they owned two cars and they were always like 10 or 14 years old and paid off. Um, they always put substantial amount in retirement. Um, they either own their home, they for sure own their home, and the mortgage was paid down significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very real simple key concepts. Um, they weren't flashy. They didn't spend a lot of money on eating out. Um, they made most meals at home. But these were people who were millionaires. And I mean, I don't want to say low millionaires, but like a million, 1.2, 2 million, 4 million, 5 million. And these are just regular everyday people. They didn't make a lot, and in many cases, they didn't make too much over six figures for
Mm-hmm.
two person household. And they were all over the country. They were Midwest, East Coast, West Coast. Very interesting book. That kind of like changed my whole perspective on what it is or what it looks like to be a millionaire. It's called The Millionaire Next Door. If y'all want to look at it, and it's based in data too. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just not like some guy talking or girl.
Well, I
So
mean, even and I normally I don't necessarily agree with him because I feel like he's not telling the whole truth. But
who?
Dave Ramsey.
Well, this is by somebody else.
Yeah, I know, but Dave Ramsey just posted an article. Well, he posted something the other day
Mm,
about the average millionaire, right? So now, in the context of the current climate on social media and amongst our peers, is quit your job, buy a course, right? Essentially,
mm,
even if you don't say it that way, that's essentially, is that not what it is?
right.
Like, it's like quit your job, buy either a stock course, a Turo course, Airbnb course, or some
Mm,
kind of course, e-commerce course, and you can
right.
quit your job and you can live this way, right? And Dave Ramsey actually put out, and I haven't verified it, so it could be wrong. I don't know if it's 100% correct, but he said they did a study, and I'll read it. He did a study, right? And it said millionaires are made, not born. So
Mm,
79% of millionaires in the U.S. didn't inherit any money. So basically
mm,
80%, right? And he said he said they conducted the largest study of millionaires ever, which I don't even know how you quantify that, but that's what he said. Uh, and he said the top three careers. Listen to this: the top three careers of over 10,000 millionaires were an engineer, an accountant, and a teacher.
mm.
Now, is big bossy social media influencer on that list? I don't think so. Right? Is the Louis bag man on the list? I don't think so. Right?
YouTube star.
Yeah. So, an engineer, accountant, and teacher, and he said they became millionaires through consistent investing, avoiding debt like the plague, and smart spending. And I read that, and I was like, you know what? This is our whole podcast.
You stole my whole swag, bar for bar, word for word.
So I know we talk a lot of shit about the internet guys. I don't have no problem with them. It's just funny. Like, it's just all funny games. But it's hilarious, because when you know certain things, it just becomes even more funny. But the reality is we just don't we just want to provide some type of insight into, you know, or at least just allow people the freedom to just be themselves and not feel pressured into doing something that they probably shouldn't do.
Mhm.
Because the path to this is actually very simple, and it's been simple because it's the same, right? And even if you're someone who is on a job, or you're not overly attractive or overly popular that you can leverage on social media,
Mhm.
right? Or even if you just don't want to talk to people like me, I don't want to talk to nobody, right? So even if that's there's still ways that you can, there's still things you can do to leverage your money and invest in yourself, invest in self-improvement to give you that end goal without having to compromise, who you are as an individual. And I felt like that reinforced it, because even with like our stock group, my whole point of doing that is or was or is just to teach process over outcome, because a lot of times what happens is the people who are in front of you are showing you outcome. They're showing you what they got and saying you can get this too if you just do what I do. And I would rather show theory and process so you learn to think for yourself, because I know everyone doesn't necessarily like their job, but a lot of people are okay with their job. The thing they hate about their job is that they have to depend on it for income, benefits, and retirement. So what if you didn't have to do that? Would you feel better about your situation? Most likely. So, with the stock group and everything else we're doing, it was just a matter of, arming people and empowering people with that information, so that way they can just be the best versions of themselves, even if they are a teacher or whatever. There's nothing wrong with being a teacher. We need more of them.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But if you didn't understanding like what the pay scale is there, if you didn't have to rely on that job for these things, would you enjoy your job better or more?
I think people get caught up in enjoying things too much. Like a job is work. Um, I think sometimes you have to get your fulfillment from somewhere else. I don't think it has to be wrapped up into your job.
I agree.
It's very few people who are able to achieve that, and most people are going to work jobs that they might not necessarily love every day, but it gets the bills paid, and it provides dental health, um, all these different things, your retirement, and find your purpose outside of it, of work. And I don't think we have to merge these things together. Um, there's a word for it, and I'll probably try to find it later, but um, there's a Buddhist word for it. I can't remember right now, but it's basically about finding your purpose, using your purpose in all the things you do. It doesn't have to be my job fulfills me.
Hmm.
It's whatever your purpose is fulfills you, and that thing can be outside of your job, your everyday work. Um, so yeah, we back to get a job. Um,
And listen, I'm somebody who hates having a job, right? Like it's like I completely understand like the disdain for like corporate employment. Like I get it. Um, but in the grand scheme of things, if you're trying to get to a certain destination, all we're trying to say is there's very simple there's a very simple process. It's not easy, but there's a very simple process that one can, implement, and begin to practice, and you can still come out okay, right? Like even if you do the bare minimum, you can still come out okay. Like if I understood, what I know now, at least just a portion, just a fraction of it, 15 years ago or 13 years ago when I'm 21 years old, and began investing, and properly, right? Like properly investing and many other things, right? I would be in a, now hindsight is always 2020, but I'd be in a totally different situation, because I would have avoided many mistakes chasing things that I thought I had to chase, because that's what our community was taught and told to be true. Ignoring certain things that I saw by and following and chasing things that were passed down, not from either social influences, through the media, culturally, just following all these different things instead of just paying attention to what was actually happening in the real world, right? And so a lot, and I bring that up because I just had a conversation with Tyrone the other day. Shout out Tyrone. We shouting everybody out today. It's episode 10. Shout out Tyrone, and he was telling me how he actually got in because he's a car hauler, and he started driving trucks because he didn't want to commute to work.
Car.
Yeah, exotic cars. Yeah. So anytime I wanted, like I mentioned, I know a lot of people in the car space. He's one of the guys. Anytime I want to know about a specific car, it's likely that he'll have it on his truck, and I can just go meet up with him. And I shouldn't say that because that might get him in trouble. But I don't want to get him in trouble because now I'm admitting to him letting me mess with the cars he has. But
it could, didn't say do.
Yeah, that never happens. But he was talking about how he even got into that, and it was because he never wanted to commute to work. So he said, if I have to be in the car for an extended period of time, I'm going to make my money in the car.
I know that.
Yeah. And he was like, I wish I would have known certain things, or I wish I would have been taught certain things earlier, because it would have made it a lot easier for me to do what I'm doing now. And of course, the good old saying of they should have taught us this in school comes up. And so I'm like, Tyrone, what teacher was going to tell you? Your teacher was probably from your neighborhood. How are they going to tell you how to do it? If we're talking about practices of the top 1% of the country, how are they just supposed to be readily available to every elementary school or every middle school or every high school in the country to pass on this information, right?
Not even just in knowledge, but it is in practice.
That's what I'm saying.
Just to know.
He was like, it was actually a really good conversation. And I'm glad we have those kinds of relationships with people to where we can just be vulnerable with each other. But he was like, man, it really relieved a lot of stress off of me, because I was thinking about it a different way, and you just let me know I shouldn't be thinking about it that way. And I think what happens is people get caught up in that, right? Oh, they should have taught us that. I'm too far behind. There's no way I can catch up. I gotta go crazy right now. I gotta be as risky as possible. And I think that becomes like a moment of analysis paralysis for a lot of people, and they never get involved because the return isn't as fast as they think it should be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. They think that they're trying to catch up. I feel like they're trying to catch up, so they're willing to make more risks. Their risk tolerance is off the charts because they feel like they're behind.
And the reality is, it's like, no, like, who was going to teach you?
Rather than just taking the knowledge as it comes and being careful with your risk over the long term. Well, I think also people want to stunt. I think that's part of rushing too. I mean, if we real, but yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely, I ain't gonna lie, that's part of it. I know people want to,
people want to stunt, like especially when summer's coming up. It's like, yo, this deal got to happen. This got to go through. This investment got to pay off.
But why? That's another thing, and I guess I'm gonna go on another grumpy old man rant. But like, why? We talked about this, so I'm not even gonna go deep into it. But just why, like, just the whole investing in terms of like income. Like, investing and income are two different things. But they're being like, they're being mixed up, and And it's just so frustrating.
Everyone, they're such in a rush to stop working and do what?
I don't know. I don't. I don't know. Because if you're not like, okay, so I like to say there's two types of people in this world. There's those who cut checks, and there's those who take checks. I'm not saying one is better than the other, and there's moments where you can be both. But the reality is, you're either cutting checks or you're taking checks. If you're taking checks, it's going to be really really hard for you to catch up to people who are cutting checks,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they're taking the gross money and then paying you.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you plan on using that money to become a person who's out here cutting checks, like
Just
what
take your
is
check.
what I don't see what the big deal is. Like it doesn't stop. You never hit a point where it stops. I mean, life continues
Mm-hmm.
every day thereafter. Like the money has to keep moving. It has to. That's the whole point of money. It has to keep
Well,
moving.
it's interesting because people don't want to cut. They don't want to take checks anymore. I mean, now we have a labor shortage.
Is that what it
We
is? That's what
literally
they're
have a
calling it?
labor shortage where there's not enough people to work. After a pandemic, like all these different retail stores, um, fast food places, they're trying to give all kind of things away, like
Mhm.
signing bonuses to come work. They're trying to do everything they can to get people to work, and no one's available. Why is that?
I think that's two things happening at the same time. I think, which one of them we talked about on the show, right? One of them
Mm-hmm.
being um, the the impact of just printing a bunch of money and giving it to
Mm-hmm.
people to just go and spend. Things become more expensive. Companies need more workers. They absorb some of that. Well, that part hasn't really happened yet. I guess they're just making enough money to kick it at the house
Mm-hmm.
on unemployment.
Yeah, and in some cases, yeah, people were making more money on their unemployment checks than they were when they were working.
Yeah. So I think that is a part of it. I don't think it's a big part, but I do think it's part of it.
Yeah, there's
The
like
other
21
thing,
different Republican states that are trying to cut off that aid right now.
unemployment, yeah.
Yeah,
But see that goes to show you that they should just pay people more money.
yeah, yeah. That was yeah. It's like
You know what I'm
duh.
saying? Because money, at the end of the day,
Yeah,
money is the motivation. So if I can make more money sitting at home, I would do that. Like I've done
it's
that.
like
Like so, like,
it's like ABC 1 2 3. Like
yeah. So
getting
you,
people
you
some
should,
more money.
if there was ever a case, and which is why I'm really surprised that whole like increase in minimum wage and all that didn't really get passed, and it doesn't have as much support as it does. And I understand, like I'm not trying to say, you know, pay your minimum wage worker 100,000, like hell no. But you definitely have to, as the wealth increases, we should definitely try to increase the safety net at the same time, because
Yeah.
once there becomes a point of huge disparity, that's where the extremes come into play,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you get the people who are on the extreme of both ends, and at that point it's war, like
Yeah.
and there is no solution. It's f those guys, and
Mm-hmm.
and the other side is saying f those guys too. So
Yeah. And they know where you live.
yeah.
People don't think they don't think people come for them. It's just crazy. It's like okay, you wouldn't pay somebody 20 $25 an hour, so they wouldn't come kill you. Give them the
Mhm.
money. I mean, people want to work. They want to feed their families. Like, and I know we talk about a lot of people who take advantage of the system, but the majority of people really need additional money. They want to work. They don't want it for free,
Mhm.
but they want enough to pay their debts and have a car that works, buy into the American dream of home ownership, and maybe take a vacation once a year. Like simple human shit.
Yeah.
I don't see why that's not available for most Americans. If we're talking about we're the greatest country ever that's ever been, it's like, well, no, it's a lot of things we're not great at, and
Yeah.
one of them is just valuing the people who live here and work here. Um, there's a labor shortage in construction because some idiot decided that people who are coming over here for a better life, who are usually have trades in construction, plumbing, electrical, that they shouldn't be here. So now no one's here to do those jobs
But even that,
because Americans
even
look down on them.
even that isn't 100% true because they hire them on work visas. Like I worked in
Yeah.
construction. I've been on the job sites.
Mm-hmm.
It's very clear who's on the job site.
Yeah.
I've been on quite a few job sites, and let me tell you, black folks and white folks are minorities on the
Mm-hmm.
job site. So they
They,
can
they,
talk that, but they hire them to they hire them.
yeah, they do. It politically at home they say we don't want any what do they say illegals, right? Um, working here and taking our jobs. But then in secret, they go back to their business and they're like, where can we get some illegals to work?
Yes,
Which is
100%.
like, wait, what? So you go to your country club and while you swinging your golf club, you're like, yeah, those illegals all bad. Yeah, we shouldn't do that. They're taking our jobs. Then you go back to work and say, yo, where's my applications at?
100%.
So I
I
don't know,
work with
man.
them.
It's just weird. It's a weird time. It's a
That's
weird
what I'm
time
saying.
for people.
I think it's a combination of things like that. All of that is one of them. And I think
Mm-hmm.
what happens is when anytime because there's such an extreme gap between the wealthy and and the less fortunate, is that anytime you talk about improving that safety net, it becomes you know a weird conversation. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it happens that way because nobody understands both sides.
Mm-hmm.
See, so when you're the less fortunate, you see the wealthy as the enemy. And it's easy to see it that way because we've been programmed to think that. If you think about every single Disney movie, the person who was the antagonist
Mm-hmm.
in the movie, they were a wealthy person,
Yep.
right? So
Mm.
you've been programmed to hate people who have money your entire life,
Right.
right? So it's very easy when you end up in a situation to be like, they're the
And
enemy.
and this is a billionaire who's giving you these stories, Walt Disney.
Exactly.
It's just
So,
the
you
irony.
know,
The irony is thick.
so I think what needs to happen is, or what people should understand both sides. I'll just say that there really needs to be an effort to fully understand both sides, and that discussion or that conversation or whatever it is, whatever it turns out to be, needs to be rooted in like economic empowerment and just fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're in a situation like now where the government prints a bunch of money and that makes things more expensive, well,
Mm-hmm.
what happens if you were someone who owned a bunch of stuff? Would that stuff not now become more expensive?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a symptom of of something that the government is doing. Like it's a symptom of the process. It's not something that's done purposely. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
symptom of what happens. So they print more money, or they tax a bunch of people and to collect all this money. Um, in consequence, things become more expensive. And so
Mm-hmm.
that means if you own assets, the assets will
Yeah.
become more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that simple. It's not a
Your
thing of like
holdings are just worth more
worth
just
more.
because of how the system works.
Exactly. So it's not that you're trying to take from someone or you're withholding from someone. It's just things become more valuable in those types of situations. But
Mm-hmm.
again, because the disparity is just so, so great, those who were less fortunate don't even take the time to learn that. They
Yeah,
just think
it's
it's
hard.
a
It's hard to learn some book shit when you can't feed your kids.
some
You know,
bullshit.
it's hard. It's
Some bullshit.
difficult. It's difficult. It is so difficult when you're working 50, 60 hours a week and you can barely kiss your kids goodnight. And now you have to go learn economics and how the system is messing you over and the
Mm-hmm.
best ways to combat it. Like it's difficult. It's like just pay me more. See, the most valuable thing people have, in which people take for granted, is the time. The time you have to look into these things and learn them. Um, Most people don't have that time, and the people who do have a little bit of time, an hour every day, they just want to relax. They want to watch their
Mm-hmm.
favorite Netflix movie. They want to unwind, and the more you unwind, the more they gonna wind you up because you have to take that time to learn something, to learn why
Mm-hmm.
it's a disparity and how you can climb out. And it's difficult to do. It's difficult to do when you're on the lower end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it. I get like I get how difficult that is. Um, I know it has to be done. Um, maybe audiobooks. Maybe that'll help. The consistent. You still have to like just put time
Mm-hmm.
into doing it. Um, oh,
You'd
but
have to make a
that's
conscious effort to do that. Absolutely.
yeah, you'd have to. But for people who just starvation wages and they're barely making it, like just pay them more money. Just pay them more money. Get them to a normal equilibrium
You know what the
because
problem is? You know the problem is, and I wouldn't necessarily call it a problem, but it's definitely like a symptom because money money is attracted by more money.
mm-hmm,
So once there becomes an area of profitability, it begins to like become a black hole for cash,
mm-hmm,
right? And with it goes the development of skills,
mm-hmm,
right? So over the last, I'd say probably 20 years, right? There's been huge technological advancements well in tech.
mm-hmm,
You know what I mean? And so the areas that the areas that service those industries have become black holes for jobs
mm-hmm,
and skill development,
mm-hmm,
right? And so because all the money is going there, it means it's not going somewhere else. And so it's not going to the development of other areas of our society that
mm-hmm.
potentially could lead to um, a better quality of
Yeah.
life or better skill, better development, in
Mm-hmm,
other areas because the resources just don't exist for it. Um, and that could be a reason potentially, or a part of the reason potentially where or why the minimum wage hasn't increased
mm-hmm,
or companies aren't willing to increase minimum wage when you think about how much money they have in net income. Because
mm-hmm,
what a lot of people don't understand, and I get why they don't understand it, is that many of these companies, especially if they're public, they operate at a loss. So they even though they might make billions of dollars in revenue, they literally may not have the money to pay you. like,
mm-hmm.
like it's hard to say that. It's hard to understand that, but they literally may not have the money to pay you
Mm-hmm.
an extra like 20 grand.
Yeah, I think the general thing is that there's no financial return in building people. That's the
Mm-hmm.
main thing that's going on right now. Um, there's no financial return in infrastructure on these plain things. Like you think about like the infrastructure bill they've been trying to push through. I think they finally got it through.
Well, the
Where
last I
like
read, the Republicans were sending a counter, basically.
so like your little infrastructure of your country is crumbling, breaking apart. There was a bridge, I believe, on the East Coast. It literally had a crack in it, like a, a hairline crack going all the way up the beam, where it was not attached. And it's like our shit's falling apart. Like bridges, roads, like everything is falling apart. Things have never been maintained. It's like they lay the road and that was it. Like, all right, good luck. And this is across the country.
Mhm.
So um I think there's just no return in building people and building infrastructure. So they just rather not do it. It's not
On the on
sexy.
the
It's
on
like
the large scale,
I want to
no.
invest in Tesla. I want to invest in the
Yeah.
new technologies coming up. I want to be part of the new thing. Where the old thing that's there to keep everything afloat is crumbling before our eyes.
You know what though? See, even that, I'm glad you brought that up because again, that goes back to money attracts money. Because a company like Tesla isn't even necessarily a sustainable business.
No.
It's just that they have a celebrity CEO.
Mm-hmm. We looked at the numbers. We've looked at the numbers. We've been selling the same car for 10 years.
Yeah.
Talk about research and development. It's like, bro,
Well, the
the
car business,
same thing.
the car business isn't a very
It's
they
not
don't have
lucrative.
well they don't have great margins because they're manipulating metal, right? So this is why the Cybertruck was so appealing, right? Because they don't have to do anything. They can just make a car out of sheet metal. So that would greatly reduce their cost per car and increase profit margins.
And I know that. That's why it's so boxy. They're like, oh, this is a new thing. Like, no, this is just
No,
it's a
I was
Lego.
broke. That's what it
This is
was.
a
I was broke. I don't have enough money to develop what it takes to manipulate this metal. What would it look like if we just put sheet metal together and made
we
it a
just
car?
we just create a Lego truck.
That's all it was. That's why it's so. That's why it was so. That was the appeal, bro. Like when they rolled it out, that was the appeal. It was, hey, look at this thing. But the reality of it is, we don't have to do anything to the metal. We can just cut it and put it together.
Mm.
So it would
No
greatly limit
primer, no
our
paint,
no
just
nothing. It would greatly reduce our cost for this
mm-hmm,
vehicle, which would boost profits. Because the one thing that Tesla's been um that's been or they've had good revenue with, or a
mm-hmm,
large portion of the revenue, I'll say that, comes from tax credits, right? Which isn't a problem. Like that's what they're there for. It's not a
mm-hmm.
problem. But they need to do something. Like they got to figure it out because they only. Do you know what the profit margins are?
Negative.
Well, they have been negative, but I mean, just in like from a percentage. Like, do you know what their margins are?
Mm-mm.
I want you to take a guess. Take a guess. If you had to guess, what would it be?
3%.
It's actually 4. So you were close.
uh,
And they make, I think their return on investment capital, which is basically their return on all debt and all basically all public money,
mm-hmm,
is negative. So it's not necessarily like a really sustainable business. People just believe in Elon Musk. He might as well be a pastor, to be honest.
mm-hmm,
So they believe in him and everything he's doing, which I don't have a problem with. Like that's not the issue. Um, but it goes to show you that if more of the public money is willing to be dumped into paying for Elon Musk's dream
mm-hmm.
than going to infrastructure, and whatever else it should go to. That goes to show you what money is attracted to. It's
Mm-hmm.
attracted to other money,
That's
right?
true.
So if they see enough, if they see enough activity and enough money going to this place, they'll put money there
Yeah.
because people believe it. Even if they don't, they know you do.
I mean, it's difficult to sell people on fundamentals.
But it makes so much sense.
Yeah, but it's not sexy.
But it makes so much sense. Like, I don't know how else to explain it.
No one
Like
can
I
no one
just
can go to work and brag about how they invested in building a new bridge. They like,
dog.
all right.
It's so simple. Like I in one of my groups, in one of my stock groups, because I'm in a few, and in one of them there was a guy who I'm mostly in them for like comedic purposes, but one of the guys was in there. He was like pumping Apple, like, oh yeah, Apple to 300 and all that kind of stuff, right? And I have Apple's my largest holding,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, but again, I don't think people fully understand what it would take for Apple to get to that point. Apple is a $2 trillion company, right? 2.2 or whatever. So let's say let's give them another 5 or 600 billion dollars
Mm-hmm.
in market cap, in value. What would it actually take for that to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they would need to increase revenue by about 40%. So they would need to be making near a half a billion. Oh, no, I'm sorry. A $500 billion in annual revenue because they have profit margins around 23%. So net income is around 99, $100 million. So if I use the same stats that exist today, right, and Apple is trading at like 30 times their net income. I think their current net income is like 76 billion. That's
Mm-hmm.
after all expenses. Everything's paid for. $76 billion. So if I use that same margin on what it would take for them to get to $3 trillion, they'd have to be making $450 billion in annual revenue, 100 million in net income. And because there's 16, I think there's like 16 and a half billion shares, that would only equate to a stock price of $185.
So
So what would it take for Apple to get to 300?
do,
Like,
do your part, people. Go buy a MacBook.
so you have to
Everyone on the
think.
planet has to buy a MacBook.
You have to think, right? Like what can, if I'm that kind of guy that's like Tesla to 3,000 or Apple to whatever.
You're like, okay, let's run the numbers.
Well, what would it take? That's the point of
Mm-hmm.
being an investor. What would it take? What would it take for Apple to increase another 40%
Mm-hmm.
in revenue? What could they do to what could they possibly have in their repertoire right now that would increase revenue by
Mm-hmm.
40%?
That's a hell of an iPhone coming out. The 13 is about to be crazy.
But even then, like the iPhone numbers have been stagnant, actually decreasing in some years.
If they make it
Like
into a sidekick, I buy it.
it's a two
That mug
trillion
flip
dollar
out.
company. Like you gotta think about this. $2.2 trillion of money is tied up in Apple.
Mm.
What would it take to add an additional $800 billion? That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what I mean. So you have to look at the fundamental. Otherwise, you're blind. Like if you don't know if you don't know when to buy, how do you know when to sell?
Mm-hmm.
That's how people lose. That's how they lose everything. I mean, AMC is popping right now, but what if AMC goes back to $7 tomorrow because you just hold it and you believe in it
Mm-hmm.
and you just lost everything because you don't know what's overvalued and undervalued.
It's true. Sign up for our stock course.
I'm just talking, by the way, because I've been drinking tequila. But
Right. Got a stream of consciousness going.
yeah, but that's just what it is, man. It's just we got to know how much, we have to know what actually goes into calculating value, and we have to know like how much things actually cost, because I feel like nobody knows how much things cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of that. It's like I've been recently, I show properties, uh, tour properties like every Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm trying to keep that up, and I'm just asking people questions on, this property is, let's say 800,000. What do you think the mortgage is? I think the example is like 750,000 in Rancho.
Mhm.
I'm like, what do you think the mortgage is? And most people um, thought it was about 2,000, 2,100, 2,300, around there. And the actual mortgage like 4,000 a month. That's like half. Basically, people were valuing around half of what it actually cost. And I think people just don't know the numbers. They just don't know what things actually cost. Um, it's like it's normal. It's normal for
So
people
how
not to
how
know.
do we how do we fix that? Because I feel like we talk a lot about what um the things that people get wrong, right? Respectfully. But how do we provide solutions? Or what solutions can we provide?
I don't know, got these books. I don't know. These books. I mean, these new things called books. I mean, they might be a little dusty, but no. But for real, I think because if we're talking about process, right? I'm not the knowledge, the holder of all knowledge. We talk
Mhm.
about process all the time. The process is actually like exposing yourself to these different things. So I think what most people don't, what people who don't know or who are completely ignorant of whatever topic is because they don't know what to Google, right? So if you hear us say something on this podcast, go Google it, right? Whatever that key term or that key word is that sparks your interest, plug it into Google and then start there.
Mhm.
That's the easiest thing to do, because we're not a podcast that's going to say this is what people don't know, and if you buy from us, now you'll know. That's not our thing. So if we're talking about process, the process is picking up these key terms that are interesting to you, plug them into Google, and then going down your rabbit hole. Um, and a lot of these things are free sources. I mean, Google's free. I mean, if you pay for internet. But I talk about all the time, like library. The library is free. Get you a free library card. Um, they even have like audiobooks that
Mhm.
you can rent from the library, and it's an app. I just did it a few weeks ago. I think it's called um, Hooplos, something like that. It's HOOLA. But if you go to your public library on the website, you go to audiobooks and you download that, just like Audible. You download the audiobook app and you check out audiobooks for free, 100% free. This is free.
I ain't gonna lie, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
most people don't. I mean, I'm all about frugal living, and like my first thing is how can I get it free before I'm willing to pay? Um, because the easiest way to make $1 is to save $1. That's my whole thing. So everyone's trying to figure out how to make the next dollar, but if you keep one, it's just as it's better. It's really better than earning another dollar,
Mhm.
because dollars don't disappear. Like you either you receive them and then you either put them back into the market.
Yeah.
So the more you keep with you, that's just more you don't have to earn. In addition to that, if you're able to keep your overhead as low as possible, that's less dollars you have to spend and put back into the market. But anyway, um, those type of things. So if it's you driving to work and you have a 30-minute commute, 40-minute commute, pop in an audiobook. I just told you, you have it free at your public library. Um, we talked about Millionaire Next Door. You can rent that on your public library and their audio app,
Mm-hmm.
and just try to be conscious of 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day of like putting this information in your head. And people get caught up in listening to something once and feeling and having it absorb fully into them. Like, I'm gonna read this book, or I'm gonna listen to this podcast, and by listening, I'm gonna absorb everything, and I'm gonna know exactly what they know. And I think we have to get away from trying to be like these, um, you know, brilliant geniuses. It's just there's gonna be words and terms you don't know, right? They're gonna fly right over your head. But as you immerse yourself in the knowledge over and over and over, it'll start to come. It'll start clicking for you. And I think most people just they get frustrated without, not knowing and understanding the words and terms when people start talking about these financial things, and then they kind of just like, oh, that's not for me, because it's difficult. It's difficult
Mm-hmm.
to process information. Um, and the best advice I can give is just keep listening to it. Keep listening to it over and over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and programming yourself, because that's how I learn. I'm a slower learner. I have to listen to things over and over and over. You
I
know.
mean, but that's the process in anything. I mean, I've like we're talking from a perspective of, or a position of, like, 14, 15 years of industry experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's a collection of, information and instinct and, intuition over time. It's not something that I just read a book and now I can tell you about all these things. It
Mm-hmm.
does take time. You do have to listen to things over and over again. And even when I was at my old job, for the last 2 years that I was there, I probably spent listening to podcasts every single day for the entire day.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Yeah, I remember
on.
that.
You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And I would take notes, or I would play around with spreadsheets and create scenarios and share it. I'd share it with y'all and say, look, man, this is what I did. This is what I'm working on,
Mm-hmm. Right.
you know? And it's like, oh, this is
Yep.
dope. Like, why you do that? And I did it for fun. Like, I did it because it's what I'm learning. And you got
Right.
you got to get it out of your brain. And
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a firm believer, like, you don't know anything. You don't fully know something until you can teach it.
Yeah. That's probably why it takes me a long time, just based on that simple fundamental
Probably.
of like, well, if I can't explain it, if I can't break it down and explain it to a 6-year-old, like, you don't know it yet.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, well, I'll just sit on it. I'll keep learning.
But there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that all of that is part of the process. All of it is part of the process. Now you just have to you have to just normalize taking in the information,
Mm-hmm.
period. And as it becomes more common to you, it'll become part of your conversation. And that's when you'll realize, okay, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? It's just, you know, it's part of the process in understanding this whole thing. It's an ongoing process. That's all it is.
Right.
So
People like, yeah, I keep logging into Rich by Monday. They keep telling me to read books, and it's a process.
yo, that sound like a scam. Like, yo, I'm trying to get rich. Yo, man, it's a process. Relax. Like, relax, B. It's a process.
Yeah, relax.
That's crazy. Yeah, man. It's
It really
it's
is, though.
no,
Like,
it is. It's very simple, man. I'm telling.
I
It's
mean, we'd be lying to people if we be like, yo, if you buy this or do this in 4 weeks, you can be this. Like,
but that's
no,
just
you
because
can't.
that's because you're not a sociopath and you're not a narcissist. Like, There's people, and you know what I think. Like, okay, so I'm glad you said that because I want to ask you, how do you feel about lifestyle marketing?
Lifestyle marketing, basically just uh, okay. Define it so I can.
Like someone who markets their product,
Mm-hmm.
right, or their service based on a certain lifestyle. Like,
Mm,
hey, I'm on a jet. Hey, I
right.
just bought a jet. Hey, I had spent
Mm-hmm.
X amount of dollars at Louis Vuitton.
Right.
I have this car. You can have it too. Buy my thing. Like that type of
Right.
stuff.
Um, my opinion is that it works.
That was not what I was looking for.
Think about it. Like I mean, this that thing it's been happening for millennia. You know, um it's the perception. People believe in a certain perception, right? If I wear a suit, I don't care what language you speak or where you're from, you believe that that person's a business person, right? Businessman or woman, right? They do business. You don't have to shake their hand. You don't have to introduce yourself. You don't have to tell them what you do. That person's about business, right? It's so many different things that these narratives are built up in our media, in our music, TV, movies, that it's already solidified that if you wear a suit, this is what you are, right? If you buy a Mercedes, it used to be Mercedes, BMW, but now we're going to even deeper, more expensive foreign cars.
Mm-hmm.
If you drive this car, you are this person, right? You're successful, et cetera, et cetera. Um, it's just part of it now. And even in my business, I'm like, I drive a clean car. You know, I just want it to be clean.
Yeah.
I want it to be clean. I want it to look like clean. That's my thing. You know, and I've kind of coined it as it's my perception cost of doing business, because for me, I drive my old ass truck everywhere
Mm-hmm.
because it don't matter. It don't matter. The knowledge that I possess in the job I can do, it doesn't matter what I'm wearing or what I'm driving. But I know that I live in the real world, right? Where there's a perception of what it is to be a business person, what that person looks like, how they talk, how they speak, what they drive, the clothes they wear, all these different things. So I can't act like that the perception the world has around these things don't apply to me, because they do. So even the clothes I buy, shoes, etc., all these different accessories, whatever it is, I just chop it as that it's a line of perception costs now.
But I don't think that's lifestyle marketing though. That's just you dressing for the respect that you,
Mm,
because you my problem is I internalize everything, right? So I don't look for validation or look for the reasoning from an outside source.
mm-hmm,
I like to think of everything as, you know, I'm in control.
mm-hmm,
So if I'm dressing this way, it's because I want to show you that I have enough respect for you to present myself accordingly.
right. And I
I
get
think
that.
I
See,
think that's
there's a
different from lifestyle marketing.
yeah. Well, I think lifestyle marketing is the extreme of what I just talked about. It's presenting yourself as a certain thing um, when you're not actually that. So it's the exaggerated um, part of perception, because you can you can buy the things that are associated with wealth or being successful, and literally not have those things within you. So it's like a facade. So you can stand by a jet and take pictures, or you can have Louis bags and say, "Hey, I just went shopping today." You know, I love the new fake turnaround, where it's like you off at the corner doing something, and the video guy comes up and you're like, oh, hey, I didn't see you there. Yeah,
I hate that
I just
shit.
got out of I just got out the Louis store, and then they go into their thing.
Every time I
And
see that, I want to throw my phone. Because it's like, why? Like, how are you just busy 2 seconds ago, and then now, now you just got the time to just drop this
right.
magnificent, unscripted ad about your like what? I mean, get out of here!
It's such an old trope from like the 80s. Like, oh, I didn't see you there. Well,
It's
while
so
you're here.
corny because they all do it. Like if one guy does it, and it's like they have a meeting. It's like, yo, did you see so and so do that? Yeah, we got to do that next, yo. It was popping.
Yeah.
I got to do
It's
my version.
oh, I didn't see you there. Well, while you're here, try this Grey Poupon.
I hate all them dudes, man.
Yeah, it's yeah. So in general, so let me state my position. Um, it's whack.
You said all that just to say, man, you could have said that first. Like, you could have said that at the beginning, man. It saved us like 10 minutes. It's whack.
uh, I
I
mean,
mean,
it wouldn't be much of a podcast
yeah, you're
if
right.
I gave people literally look. This is weak. Avoid these different things. Know what's going on. I mean, it's just entertainment value at this point.
Yeah.
But my thing is for the the 18-year-old, 18 to 21-year-old seeing these things. Their brain is not fully formed. Not that they're dumb, but it's
Don't
their
have enough
first time
experience.
around.
Yeah.
It's their first time around to seeing these different concepts, and it's just ridiculous. I think the worst thing about the lifestyle marketing and what's going on, or whoever's in the new MLM, and they're really excited about this business opportunity in quotation marks,
Mm-hmm.
um, is the person who's our age or older looking at these different opportunities, and they want to recruit you, and I'm like, look, like I did my run 15 years ago, and like you just now getting to this. I'm just like, no, it's not for me. All the
Well,
different
and it's
sayings.
just it's not exciting. Like that's not exciting to a person who has something to lose already. It's not exciting to see you put on some Dolce and Gabbana shoes. It's not exciting. It's just
No.
not. Like it's not exciting to see you put on an Hermes belt. Okay? Like I'm supposed like you can't lure me in with that. Like I'm an adult. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's I don't know. I feel like it's weak, honestly. And the reason why I asked you is because I seen an interview with a guy who was explaining it, and
Mm.
I have no way to prove it, but I'm 100% certain this guy purchased used Louis Vuitton or other designer brands. He purchased their shopping bags because you can go on eBay and purchase shopping bags. If
Yeah,
y'all didn't
that's
know that,
crazy.
you can go on eBay and purchase shopping bags from all your favorite stores. So I'm almost 100% certain this guy did that, uh, ran some ads, and then sold a course, and
This is
portrays
so
himself
weird.
and portrays
This is
himself a
so.
certain way.
You sent me that picture. I'm like, they are scamming at a different level. I wouldn't have
It's,
never thought. I wouldn't have never thought to purchase
well,
a Louis
there's
bag and
reasons.
put fake items in it as
There's
if I
reasons.
purchased it.
No, that there were no items in his bags. It was just the bags. But it's
This is
think
crazy.
about it. Think about if you do something at your house or you have a very specific event and you want to decorate it a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Then like that's an explanation to go out and buy like a Gucci box or something, or
Mm-hmm.
like what I mean. Like there's various explanations for it.
Right.
But to use it in marketing to make you buy something from me, I just feel like I feel like that
That's just
crosses the
deceitful.
line. Yeah. It's
Right.
unethical,
On purpose.
and again,
Right.
there's some people who don't care about that because it's all about making the money, and they're extreme capitalists, and they feel like, okay, well, if they're doing anything to make a dollar, I don't care,
Hmm.
and I'm just not one of those people. If
It's
you have to
different from
lie,
like defrauding like the consumer. I think that's how you don't want to make your money, by
is
defrauding
it
your
though?
customers and clients.
Because I feel like, what kind of person would do that? Like, what kind of person are you to position yourself to just position yourself next to a bunch of bags or boxes that you bought and sell marketing that way? Like, how desperate are you?
Yeah. Got to be real desperate.
Okay, so
Real desperate.
if I'm standing next to this person, or if I'm in business with this person, when times get rough, would their character not be in question? Because they're
Hmm.
willing to lie to you.
Right.
They're willing to lie to
Yeah.
you to get what they want, right? So would their character not be questionable in that sense? Like,
Hmm.
I don't want to be around people like that.
Yeah.
But I know other people do because they don't care. It's just all about the money, right? So,
Hmm.
um, but I asked you because that same guy that I'm talking about, someone asked him about lifestyle marketing, and his response is, "You can't hide the money," right? That was his response, verbatim.
Hmm.
You can't hide the money. And he said that people don't want to take advice from someone who doesn't look like they've had success.
Hmm.
And I understand that as well. But my question would be, and this is where the interviewer uh, failed. I won't say failed, but this is where he didn't, you know, dig deeper. Is well, why do you need them to listen to you?
Hmm. So I can sell them things.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's my point. Like,
Hmm.
if it's different if you press record and and these things are around, and this is my everyday life because this is how I live, versus I'm going to frame this a certain way. I'm going to put a
Hmm.
Louis Vuitton box on my head in my McLaren and
It's a
spin
prop.
it. Yeah, you know what I mean?
It's
Like,
a
I'm going to
prop.
spin it on my head and make you
Hmm.
feel like I'm showing you outcome
Right.
of, you can have this if you buy this from me. I
Right.
think
Right. It's a
that's
prop.
where it
It's a
gets
set.
corny.
It's all set up. It's
That's
like a
where
set.
that's where it becomes unethical for me. It's like, if your service is really that great, and I look at it like, maybe it's our fascination with, like, the plug.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because for all these guys who are gurus or um authority figures in certain industries, there are people who actually work in these industries who do extremely well, who don't present themselves that way.
Hmm.
So why should I believe you when you have
Uh,
no track record? Because what a lot of people don't understand is that if you have friends in real estate, like me and Dorrance, we can do something. We have access to all public records. And I'm gonna just say
hmm.
this because we have access to all public records. Okay, so if a guy pops up, or if anybody pops up and they're telling you about, like, what they have and what they do and how much money they made, your friends in real estate can run a title search to see where these people own property. I don't know if I should be saying this because I don't know if this is ethical or not, but
I mean, it's
I
public
do it.
information.
I do it all the time. So anytime somebody comes up and says, I just made $1 million by my course or whatever, I go and look up where they live. Because if where you live doesn't match up with what you say or what you're presenting, either the money is too new, so you can't even qualify for a home if you want to go buy one,
Hmm.
or you're not making that amount of money. And you can look up where they live, you can look up their phone numbers, their addresses, and you can look up if they're involved in any corporations of any kind. You can see when they're formed, the whole nine. All this is available to the public anyway. Anybody can do this, but it's
Hmm.
just easier for people who are in real estate. So
That's
You know
why
that,
it's
that's
like
why
it's no point in lying.
exactly.
There's no point in lying. It's like be you, be authentic. And this is my frustration with everything now, especially the new census came out. 2020 census came out,
Hmm.
and uh, the census determined that everyone's lying. Everyone's lying about what they're doing, how much money they're making, because the median income hasn't changed
It
within the
can't.
last 10
Nobody
years
has.
much.
Nobody's working.
10 years ago, it was around 69,000 in LA. Now it's like 75,000. 10 years,
Mhm.
over 10 years. If you don't know, the census is taken every 10 years. So how is it possible? How is it possible that per capita, I didn't look LA, but I think it's probably like 40,000 around there per person,
Mhm.
$40,000. How's it possible that's the median and everyone is balling out of control? If you don't remember from like, I don't know, your middle school class, the median is basically like lining up all the incomes from
Yeah, it's
zero to
directly in the middle.
million,
Yeah.
and it's the middle income, right? So this
Hmm.
is most people on the spectrum to make this amount of money. My frustration is that everyone's lying, but they're also not being authentic and being themselves. I mean, it used to be a time, and it was a short time, like right after we left high school, where everybody was kind of like on the same platform, um, in the real world
Hmm.
and in the social media world, where you can talk to a friend from high school and just it'll be cool. You can hang out, you can chill, you can go get something to eat, talk about what's going on in their life, et cetera, and it was cool.
Hmm.
But now we have a we have this thing where people are able to lie to you. They can lie to you on social media and lie, and then they have to lie to you in person because
Exactly.
their social media platform doesn't line up with who they are in person. So they have to carry the lie of social media into their real lives. And my thing is, I'm frustrated because I'm like, don't lie to me because I don't care. And if you really want to lie to me, like if you care so much about lying to me, now I have to go look it up. If you really want to lie to me,
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, all right. And it's not so much just lying to me, it's the stunting, right? It's the stunting on you of like, this is what it is. It's just like, okay, that's fine. And for me, I don't care either way. It's like, yo, we all kind of doing the same thing.
Hmm.
We going to work, trying to take care of family, take care of things, all these different things. We're all doing the same things. But a portion of us are lying about what they're doing day to day, and lying about what they make, and lying about what they spend. And I don't care enough to be lied to. Like, why we
Yeah.
just can't go back to like just like regular stuff? Why we can't just have barbecues and hang out and talk shit and eat and drink and have a good time?
Because
Why I have
everything
to
has to be a
stand there and
moment.
you have to lie to me about your life?
Everything has to be a moment, and everyone is secretly competing with each other. But
It's
that's
just gross.
but that's the activities and the behavior that social media encourages. Everyone is competing. They see you doing a certain thing, and you out here doing a certain thing because that's just the way you live, and the next person has to feel like they're equally as capable, even if they're not. Like if you're someone who runs a business and then you have friends who are employees, they they're not gonna it's gonna be really, really difficult for them to match up with you because you have
But it's
something
like,
called gross revenue
mm,
and they have something called gross income. Like
mm-hmm,
it's gonna be really difficult to keep up with that person that's bringing in a half a million, $800,000 in revenue, who can
mm-hmm,
afford to pay someone your salary and still make six figures.
yeah.
But then that person will secretly be in competition with them. Like, nah, man, I can do the same things you can do. No, you cannot. And why does it need to be? Why does that need to be a
And it doesn't
thing?
even matter.
Exactly.
It doesn't even
You
matter.
can,
Just go home, feed your family, go on your vacations twice a year, and like just chill. I'm so frustrated about of this phony social media life where everyone is somebody.
yeah. Maybe it's an age thing. Maybe it's because we were old enough. Like I looked today on my Twitter and it said member since 2009. And I was like,
Right.
maybe it's because we're old enough to remember a time on the internet where it was literally like it was really just about connecting with people
Right. It was all
and
for the
not
jokes. Right.
yeah, and not necessarily being your personal website to turn a profit.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
use it for that, but everyone's not there to turn a profit.
Yeah. I'm for sure trying to go back to a time that's never going to come back. And I understand that fully.
Yeah.
I'm for sure not delusional about what the internet is now because I've studied for so long now.
The internet is
I've
a
been an
swap
active
meet.
studier of the internet now.
It's the
And
swap meet.
yeah, you only go on there to post your product, whatever your product is. On the internet now, you're either consuming a product or you're selling one.
Mm-hmm.
There's no in between. All of us who were trying to just give updates on how we're doing or how the family's doing or showing the kids, that shit's over. It's all over. Like I don't put that on there anymore. It doesn't matter.
Mm-mm.
Like I'll do it to like close friends and stuff like that and show and try to give updates. But other than that, for the general internet, like it's no point. It's no point in
No.
making your close whatever's close to you being cheapened by the likes of a random person. So
And
I'm no longer putting that content on.
that's not to say like one shouldn't use these resources to make income. It's just when desperation sets in, because again, we're in times like now where it seems like everybody's winning, but the numbers show you that everybody isn't winning,
Man, you look
right?
at the census data. If you look at the data, I mean, you just know. Like, I think that's the part of my frustration. Like, I know what you make.
But nobody looks at who do you know just looks at jobs like come on man, nobody is out here like they report the jobs data like every Thursday and Friday, like nobody is out here looking at that, which is why it's so easy just to lie to people, especially the people who are on the lower end of the scale. They're not looking at that information. They don't even talk about
Mm.
finances in their own house. They don't even know how much their spouse makes. Why would they know what the jobs information or the jobs report looks like this week? Like they wouldn't know. They have separate bank accounts. Everybody does their own thing. They go half on everything and they're married. Like, how would you know? Why
Yeah,
would
that's
you even
that's
care to
wild.
know?
That's
How would you
wild.
even care to know what the rest of the country is doing in terms of employment or finances? And you can't even have a joint account in your own house.
How could you have any type of financial plan if you don't have joint income,
But
living in the same house, married?
that's
Like
why
what?
people are delusional and they're
This is
asking for
weird.
they ask for things that don't make sense because they don't know the numbers because they don't even know what was in their own house.
It's like you got your half of debt this month. Yeah, I got my half. Let me put my two and put your
That's
two.
all that matters. So if you don't know how much that dude could tell you he make, or that person can tell you that they make whatever, you don't know. They have a
Right.
separate bank account,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're looking at them as the benchmark to whatever that dollar mark is, then you're going to think, oh well, I want somebody who make more than that, or I need to be somebody who makes more than that, even though this person is lying to you about how much money they make. it's is leading you on to believe what they actually have. Like that, nobody is talking about finance or economics in their household. It's very evident just in the conversation that we had at the beginning of this podcast of never sell your grandma's house or whatever. It's like, well, what are you holding for?
Yeah, you have to really look at who's saying that
Because
and if
nobody
they
has a
even have
plan.
any merit to even say those words.
Nobody has a plan. Nobody has a plan. It's just let's hold on to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody has a plan. And then
No
again, when
one's
you get
financial planning.
no,
No
when
one's
you get
financial
smacked in the
planning, but
head,
everyone's talking about financial freedom. It's like, give me the plan.
they
Well,
don't have one.
if you get three people and they get three people, that's not the plan. That's
Now
not the
see,
plan.
now you're making it personal. Um, so anyway, anyway, we've been rambling on.
Yeah, no, we got to go on now.
At this point, I think the tequila has been talking. But this is episode 10. I mean, this is a celebratory event for us.
Right. It's round
Um,
numbers.
you know
I
what I
like
mean?
round numbers.
We never thought that, at least I never thought initially. I just never thought about doing just being in this place of having 10 episodes. So this is a big accomplishment for me. Just especially given how things have been going the last uh 18 months. This is a big accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'd like to thank you guys for sticking with us for the last 10 weeks, tuning in every week. Shout out to P Minty and Sean and Joe West for
Yeah,
holding
long
down the
term listeners.
comments. Yeah, they hold down the comments every week, especially P Minty. Um,
My bro
and
always
and
calls me all the time, Marlon. Well, I
yeah,
call him sometimes.
y'all gotta
Marlon.
get in the comments, man. Y'all gotta get in the
Uh,
comments, like and subscribe, because that tells YouTube that people want to see this content.
mhm. Yeah, because a lot of
And
people usually just call us directly. Yo, I really like what you was talking about on the podcast,
yeah, no,
and I
we on the
appreciate that
internet
too.
now. Yeah,
I
like
appreciate that too. I talk to you, holla at you, but like, yo, a comment helps, emoji, a like, it really helps to let people know
man,
that this content is worth listening to. And if you
listen,
like it, other people might like it. So
we are digital creators. Okay. We
it's
are no
funny.
longer we are no longer your friends. We are digital creators. This is how you support us. You get in the comments and like and all that, and you share.
Mm, yeah.
Um, that's how
And we
you
do
do it.
appreciate people who have done it. Homegirl Becky, she's always good of shouting us out and telling people about us.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's the B loves the hood, BEE. Yeah, so we do appreciate everyone who've done their part and to help us and push this type of thing forward, and we appreciate it.
You know what I was thinking? I was thinking because Apple and Spotify have both rolled out like the paid subscription for your podcast, but I think that's kind of weird. So I was
Mm-hmm.
really leaning towards like I know we joke about it, but even like Patreon
Mm-hmm.
at like a $5 or a $10 level. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And we can probably do like a live show or a go live or something with
Yeah.
the group, and then they get the episode like a day early for like
Mm-hmm.
$10 a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with that. I mean, we're gonna do all kind of content. Like I got a camera now. Old school RMG back in the building, and it's a lot of that is gonna come. A lot of stuff's gonna roll out. Everything's opening back up. Fully vaxxed and waxed. So it's it's on. It's on. We out here.
Yeah, man. So let us know in the comments below, man, if y'all rolling with the if y'all rolling with the Patreon idea. I know we'd also give you guys access to a phone number where you can text us directly. And so we'd be able to interact, even if we're not
Yeah.
on Patreon interacting with each other, you'd be able to just send a text in and whenever
And we
and
got that. Should
interact
we
with
give the
us.
number out?
Not
Another
yet, because I
time.
want to make
Yeah.
sure we get everything together. Um, or if we're going to do it at all. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't want to be like, yo, text this number, and then like we never we never respond. So
Right.
so we'll think about that. But let us know what y'all think in the comments below if that's something that y'all be up to, just paying like $10 a month and being part of our group, getting exclusive access to certain things. And yeah. Any last words, man?
We appreciate y'all being here. We got I appreciate everyone who's here now wants to be here,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that. And they're usually people that are very close to us that know us. So I don't want to let that be let that be known.
Mm-hmm.
So we love you. Come back next week.
Yeah, man. So it's been another episode of Rich by Monday. It's episode 10. We celebrating, we drinking, we probably slurring words and all that, but it don't matter because we did this for 10 weeks straight. Who else did something for 10 weeks?
We're the only people who've ever done anything to 10 weeks straight here on Rich by Monday.
Can't tell me nothing right now, right? 10 weeks? What?
Right. We should do a happy hour with the folks too.
We
Like,
could
oh,
do
that'd
that,
be
man.
nice. Like a happy hour with the Patreon where we all just, we get on the Zoom, we hanging out. It can be Zoom, but then it could be in person, rooftop,
All that we
cocktails.
can do. It could be just a
Oh,
thing. It
that'd
could
be
be a
nice.
thing. We can
That'd
do
be
whatever we
nice.
want because it's ours,
Yeah, that'd be
right?
nice.
And then we can go deep and pause just in case, but we can go
Yeah.
deep and really
Mm-hmm.
get into educational things and really get into like passing on like real information,
Yeah, that'd be dope.
beyond just the way we talk about it on the podcast. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested in doing like the classroom setting or um, the ABC 1 2 3 type thing. I feel like there's
Mm-hmm.
enough videos that do that, or enough channels, that teach you how to do certain things.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I feel like if we can just continue to help make these things seem as normal as possible in conversation, um, that'll help a lot of people. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Better than it would if they just had to sit around and take notes.
Yeah. Notes that no one's ever going to reread. Notes, just
Yeah.
notebooks that get dusty. I know. I've taken a lot of notes in my career.
Man, you ain't lying. So yeah, we'll see y'all next week, man. Episode 11, and there will be no tequila and no whiskey. But tonight
Maybe.
we get lit. All right, y'all. Peace
All
out.
right. See y'all.